Una madre llegó sucia a la graduación de su hijo, pero cuando él tomó el micrófono, todos los invitados se quedaron en shock con lo que dijo. Suscríbete a nuestro canal para ver más historias increíbles como esta y no olvides dejar un me gusta en el video para seguirnos. The aroma of freshly baked scones wafted through the crisp Liverpool morning as Sarah Thompson carefully arranged her pastries in her modest street cart near Albert Dock. Her weathered hands, marked by years of kneading dough and weathering the harsh Merseyside winters, moved with practiced precision. The early morning fog rolling in from the River Mersey created an ethereal backdrop to her daily ritual, one she had perfected over the past decade since her beloved Robert's departure. At 42, Sarah's face still held traces of the beauty that had once caught Robert's eye at the Cavern Club, though time and hardship had etched fine lines around her eyes. Her golden brown hair, now streaked with subtle grey, was neatly tied back as she prepared for another day of selling her homemade treats to tourists and locals alike. "Good morning, love. The usual, please," called out Mr. Jenkins, a regular customer who worked at the Maritime Museum. His friendly face was a welcome sight every morning. "Coming right up," Sarah replied with a warm smile, reaching for the cinnamon roll she always set aside for him. Fresh from the oven, still warm. As she handed over the pastry, her eyes drifted to the worn envelope tucked safely in her apron pocket. The letter that had arrived yesterday still seemed surreal. Her son William had achieved what seemed impossible. The prestigious Liverpool College had offered him a full scholarship based on his exceptional academic performance at his current comprehensive school. William was her pride and joy, a brilliant 16-year-old who had inherited his father's sharp mind and her own determination. Despite their modest circumstances in their small flat in Toxteth, he had never let their financial situation define his ambitions. While she sold pastries by the dock, he spent countless hours in the local library, studying well into the evening. The morning rush began to pick up, and Sarah's thoughts were interrupted by a steady stream of customers. Each sale brought her closer to her goal of buying William the proper uniform he would need for his new school. The Liverpool College uniform wasn't just any set of clothes, it was a symbol of opportunity, one that cost more than she typically earned in a week. As she served her customers, Sarah couldn't help but overhear snippets of conversation from passing tourists about the grand houses in Woolton and Calderstones, where many of William's future classmates lived. The contrast between their life in Toxteth and the world William would soon enter was stark, but Sarah held on to hope that his intelligence and character would bridge any social divides. During a quiet moment, she pulled out the letter again, her fingers tracing over the school's prestigious letterhead. The words blurred slightly as tears welled in her eyes. Happy tears, but tinged with anxiety. The scholarship would cover his tuition, but there were so many other expenses to consider. Books, uniforms, school trips, and the daily bus fare to the other side of the city. "Mum, you're reading it again?" William's voice startled her. He had appeared at her cart, his current school uniform slightly too short at the ankles, a reminder of how quickly he was growing. "Just making sure it's real, love," Sarah replied, quickly wiping her eyes. "Shouldn't you be in class?" "It's lunch break. Thought I'd come see you," he said, helping himself to a slightly broken scone that wouldn't sell. "I've been thinking about the uniform." "Don't you worry about that," Sarah interrupted, straightening his collar automatically. "I've been putting a bit aside, and Mrs. O'Leary from the pub said she might have some extra cleaning work for me in the evenings." William's face fell slightly. "You're already working too hard, Mum. Maybe I should just stay at Toxteth Community." "William Robert Thompson," Sarah said firmly, using his full name as she always did when making an important point. "This is your chance. Your father always said education was the key to any door, and he was right. We'll manage the expenses just like we always have." The mention of his father made William's eyes drift to the small photo Sarah kept in her cart, Robert Thompson in his university lecturer's robes, taken just months before the illness took him. He had been so proud of his position at the University of Liverpool, teaching literature to eager young minds. His books still lined their small flat's walls, a legacy of learning that had shaped William's passion for knowledge. As the lunch hour crowd began to gather, William helped his mother serve customers, his quick mind making exact change faster than she could. Together, they worked in comfortable synchronization, their small team against the world. Neither spoke about the challenges that lay ahead at Liverpool College, but both were keenly aware that their lives were about to change dramatically. The afternoon sun broke through Liverpool's characteristic clouds, casting a golden light across the Albert Docks historic buildings. Sarah watched as William rushed back to school, his too short trousers and scuffed shoes a stark reminder of the social gulf he would soon have to navigate. But there was steel in his stride, a confidence born from years of academic achievement despite their circumstances. As she turned back to her cart, Sarah noticed a pristine Range Rover pulling up to the dock, its occupants emerging in designer clothes to browse the upscale shops. Soon, William would be sharing classrooms with children from families like these. Her hands shook slightly as she rearranged her remaining pastries, but she steadied them with determination. They had overcome too much to let fear of social differences hold them back now. The imposing gates of Liverpool College loomed before William on his first day. The Victorian architecture, a stark contrast to his former school's utilitarian buildings. His new uniform, purchased with his mother's hard-earned savings, felt stiff and formal, though Sarah had spent hours making sure every pleat and crease was perfect. "Remember, love, you earned your place here," Sarah whispered, straightening his tie one last time before stepping back. They had taken the bus together, Sarah insisting on seeing him off despite needing to open her cart later than usual. William nodded, adjusting the strap of his second-hand leather satchel, the nicest they could afford from the charity shop, but still notably worn compared to the designer bags he could already see other students carrying. The morning sun caught the polished brass nameplate of the school, and William took a deep breath, channeling the quiet confidence his father had always tried to instill in him. As he walked through the grounds, the murmur of conversations in refined accents surrounded him. Groups of students stood in clusters, sharing stories about their summer holidays in the south of France or the Swiss Alps. William thought of his own summer, helping his mum at the cart and studying advanced materials he'd borrowed from the library. "You must be William Thompson," a crisp voice called out. The school secretary, Mrs. Pembroke, approached with a stack of papers. "Welcome to Liverpool College. Here's your schedule and a map of the grounds. Your first class is Advanced Mathematics with Mr. Harrison in room 203. The hallways were a maze of dark wood paneling and oil paintings of former headmasters. William navigated them carefully, grateful for the map as he searched for his classroom. He arrived early, choosing a seat near the front, a habit that had served him well at his old school. As other students filed in, two boys caught his attention. Oliver Harrison and James Worthington entered with an air of entitled confidence, their uniforms bearing the subtle marks of bespoke tailoring. They took seats at the back of the room, their matching leather briefcases emblazoned with their family crests. "I heard they're letting in charity cases this term," Oliver's stage whisper carried clearly through the room. "Father says it's all about diversity quotas now." William's cheeks burned, but he kept his eyes forward, remembering his mother's words about earning his place. The morning classes passed in a blur of advanced concepts and new faces. While the material challenged him, William found himself keeping pace, his years of extra study paying off. During lunch break, he found a quiet corner in the library, unwrapping the sandwich Sarah had carefully prepared. The library itself was magnificent, with towering shelves and leather-bound volumes that would have made his father's eyes light up. As he ate, William pulled out his father's worn copy of Great Expectations, finding comfort in the familiar pages. "Dickens? How appropriate," came Oliver's voice from behind him. James stood nearby, smirking. "Though I suppose you're more of an Oliver Twist, aren't you? Does your mother still sell those common street pastries?" William's grip tightened on his book, his father's voice in his head reminding him that dignity didn't require wealth. "My mother's pastries are enjoyed by people from all walks of life," he replied evenly. "Even your father's secretary buys them regularly. She particularly enjoys the almond croissants." The calculated mention of Oliver's father's staff member caused a flicker of uncertainty in the boy's expression. Before he could respond, the library door opened and Emily Brighton entered. Her presence seemed to shift the atmosphere immediately. Emily, with her auburn hair and kind eyes, was clearly from the same privileged world as Oliver and James, but there was none of their condescension in her manner. She walked directly to William's table, ignoring the other boys. "You're in my advanced literature class," she said warmly. "I noticed your analysis of Shakespeare's sonnets was brilliant. Would you mind if I joined you? I'd love to discuss your interpretation of Sonnet 116. William nodded, surprised and grateful for the friendly overture. Oliver and James retreated, but not before James called back, "Careful, Emily. Charity cases can be catching." Emily rolled her eyes. "Sorry about them, they're still stuck in the dark ages, thinking family names mean everything. I heard you got the highest entrance exam scores in the school's history." As they discussed literature, William felt some of his tension ease. Emily's genuine interest in his thoughts and her easy manner reminded him that not everyone at Liverpool College would judge him by his postcode or his mother's occupation. The afternoon classes brought new challenges, but William met each one with determination. In advanced chemistry, he particularly excelled, earning reluctant praise from even the strictest teacher. However, he couldn't help noticing the whispers and glances that followed him through the corridors. At the end of the day, William hurried to the bus stop, eager to tell his mother about his experiences. He found Sarah at her usual spot by Albert Dock, her face lighting up at the sight of him in his uniform. "How was it, love?" she asked, already preparing his favorite vanilla slice. "Different," William replied carefully, not wanting to worry her with the full truth. "The classes are challenging, but in a good way. And I met someone nice. Emily. She's in my literature class." Sarah's eyes sparkled with understanding and hope. As they packed up the cart together, the setting sun painted Liverpool's skyline in shades of gold and purple. The first day had brought its share of difficulties, but also possibilities. William knew the path ahead wouldn't be easy, but with his mother's strength behind him and his father's memory guiding him, he was ready to face whatever challenges Liverpool College had in store. As September gave way to October, the brisk winds from the Mersey brought change to Liverpool's streets. Sarah's pastry cart now offered warm bread pudding and steaming cups of tea, perfect for the cooling weather. Her regular customers had doubled since word spread about her new autumn spice scones, a recipe she'd perfected during late-night baking sessions after her evening cleaning work at the pub. William was settling into his routine at Liverpool College, though each day brought new challenges. His academic excellence was becoming impossible to ignore, even for his detractors. In advanced mathematics, he had scored highest on their first major exam, earning grudging respect from some classmates and intensifying the resentment from others. "I don't understand how you do it," Emily said one afternoon as they studied together in the library. The grand room had become their sanctuary, with its oak-paneled walls and ceiling-high windows that looked out over the school's manicured grounds. "You work at your mum's cart, help with her cleaning jobs, and still manage to outperform everyone." William smiled, thinking of his father's old study habits. Dad always said time management is as important as intelligence. He used to grade papers while giving lectures at the university. Emily's eyes widened with interest. "Your father was a university lecturer. I didn't know that." "At the University of Liverpool," William replied, his voice softening. "English literature. He loved teaching almost as much as he loved books." He didn't elaborate on what happened after, but Emily's gentle expression suggested she understood. Their conversation was interrupted by Oliver Harrison's arrival. He carried a stack of papers, his face unusually serious. "The Michaelmas Term Charity Ball Committee needs volunteers," he announced to the library at large, though his eyes fixed on William. "Though I suppose some of us will be too busy serving refreshments to participate." Emily stood up, her chair scraping against the wooden floor. Actually, William would be perfect for the committee. His mother runs her own business. She'd have brilliant insights for the catering arrangements. Oliver's face reddened. "This is a prestigious event, Brighton. We can't have just anyone." "I'll do it," William interrupted, surprising himself. "I'd be happy to help with the planning." He thought of his mother's business acumen, how she managed to make every penny count and still create products that brought joy to others. The news spread quickly through the school. William Thompson, the scholarship student from Toxteth, would be on the charity ball committee. Some students whispered it was a joke, others that it was Oliver's way of humiliating him further. But Emily's support remained steadfast, and gradually others began to see beyond their initial prejudices. After school, William rushed to share the news with his mother, finding her at her usual spot near Albert Dock. The evening light cast long shadows across the cobblestones as the last tourists of the day wandered past. "A charity ball?" Sarah's eyes sparkled with pride, though worry creased her brow. "That's wonderful, love, but won't you need—" She trailed off, both of them thinking about the formal wear required for such an event. "I've thought about that," William said quickly. "Mr. Jenkins from the Maritime Museum mentioned his son's old tuxedo might fit me. He offered to lend it for the evening." Sarah's hands stilled on the pastry she was wrapping. "Your father's cufflinks," she said softly. "They're still in the box on my dresser. They'll add just the right touch." That evening, as they sat in their small flat reviewing the committee's initial plans, Sarah noticed something different about her son. The shy boy who had started at Liverpool College was gradually being replaced by a young man who carried himself with quiet confidence, much like his father had. "These catering estimates are ridiculous," William muttered, poring over the documents. "We could offer twice the variety at half the cost if we worked with local vendors, instead of that posh service from London." Sarah smiled, recognizing Robert's practical mindset in their son. "Perhaps that's why you're on the committee, love. Fresh perspectives often lead to better solutions." The next day at school, William presented his alternative catering proposal to the committee. He had stayed up late researching local suppliers, including some of the artisanal bakers who worked near his mother's cart. His presentation was meticulous, showing significant cost savings while maintaining the event's prestigious standards. Oliver and James exchanged glances as William spoke, their usual smugness replaced by something closer to uncertainty. Other committee members began nodding in agreement, particularly when William explained how the money saved could be added to the charitable donation. "This is actually quite good," admitted Helena Blackwood, the committee treasurer and daughter of a prominent Liverpool banker. "We could increase our donation to the Children's Hospital by 30% with these savings." As the meeting concluded, William noticed Oliver lingering behind. For a moment it seemed the other boy might say something, but he merely gathered his things and left without his usual snide remark. It was a small change, but in the complex social hierarchy of Liverpool College, it felt significant. Later that afternoon, as William helped his mother close up her cart, he shared the committee's positive response to his proposal. Sarah listened proudly, her hands automatically wrapping the day's leftover pastries to deliver to the local shelter, a tradition she had maintained since Robert's time. "Your father would be so proud," she said, touching the simple gold band she still wore. "He always said true class isn't about how much money you have, but how you treat others and the difference you make in their lives." As they walked home through the gathering dusk, the lights of Liverpool's waterfront twinkling to life around them, William felt a growing sense of purpose. The charity ball was more than just a school event. It was an opportunity to prove that worth wasn't measured by postcodes or bank balances, but by the content of one's character and the willingness to work for positive change. The weeks leading up to the Michaelmas Charity Ball transformed Liverpool College's atmosphere. William's catering proposal had sparked unexpected changes, with more students from different social circles beginning to interact. Even James Worthington had grudgingly asked for William's help with their advanced literature assignment, though Oliver Harrison maintained his distance. Emily had become a constant presence in William's life, their study sessions extending beyond schoolwork to long conversations about books, dreams, and life in Liverpool. She never seemed to notice the whispers that followed them through the school corridors, or perhaps she simply didn't care. "My father wants to meet you," Emily announced one rainy afternoon as they sheltered in the library. "He was quite impressed when I told him about your catering proposal. He sits on the school's board of governors, you know." William's heart raced at the prospect. Meeting Emily's father meant entering their world properly, beyond the school grounds. "I'd be honored," he managed to say, though anxiety churned in his stomach. That evening, as he helped his mother with her cleaning job at the pub, William shared the news. Sarah's face lit up, though concern flickered in her eyes. "That's wonderful, love. The Brighton family is quite influential in Liverpool." She paused in her work, considering, "Perhaps we should have them visit the cart first. Let them see what we've built here." William nodded, grateful for his mother's quiet wisdom. The next day, he extended the invitation to Emily, who enthusiastically agreed. "Dad loves traditional British baking," she said. "He's always complaining about those pretentious French patisseries Mum prefers." The following Saturday morning found Sarah's cart especially pristine, her best displays arranged with care. William had arrived before dawn to help her prepare, and the morning air was rich with the scent of fresh pastries. Emily arrived with her father, Charles Brighton, exactly as promised. Mr. Brighton cut an impressive figure in his casual weekend attire that probably cost more than 3 months of Sarah's earnings. However, his warm smile and firm handshake held no trace of condescension. "Mrs. Thompson," he greeted Sarah, "your reputation precedes you. The Maritime Museum staff speak very highly of your baking." He turned to William. "And, young man, your academic performance has not gone unnoticed by the board. We're quite pleased with how you've taken to Liverpool College." As they sampled Sarah's pastries, Mr. Brighton shared stories about his own school days. "Would you believe I started in the comprehensive system myself?" he revealed, surprising them all. "A scholarship to grammar school changed my path, much like yourself, William, though I dare say your entrance exam scores were rather better than mine." The conversation flowed easily, and William noticed his mother relaxing as Mr. Brighton praised her business acumen and discussed the challenges of small enterprise management. It was clear he saw them not as charity cases, but as people of substance making their way in the world. However, the pleasant morning took an unexpected turn when Oliver Harrison and his mother appeared at the cart, stopping short at the sight of the Brightons. Mrs. Harrison's face registered shock, then something like embarrassment. "Charles," she said stiffly, "I didn't expect to see you here." "Margaret," Mr. Brighton replied pleasantly, "you must try Mrs. Thompson's almond croissants. They're exceptional." He turned to Sarah. "2 more, please, if you would be so kind." The tension was palpable as Mrs. Harrison struggled to maintain her composure. Oliver stood frozen, his usual confidence evaporated in the face of this unexpected social collision. We were just..." Mrs. Harrison fumbled for words. "Getting your weekly order," Emily supplied innocently. "Your secretary mentioned you have Mrs. Thompson's pastries delivered to your office every Wednesday morning." Color flooded Mrs. Harrison's cheeks. It was clear that while she had been secretly enjoying Sarah's baking, she hadn't wanted this fact known in her social circle. Oliver's expression shifted from embarrassment to confusion as he looked between his mother and the cart. "Well," Mr. Brighton said cheerfully, seemingly oblivious to the undercurrents, "now that we're all here, perhaps we should discuss the charity ball arrangements. William's proposal for local catering has created quite a buzz among the governors." Mrs. Harrison's discomfort grew visible. "Local catering? But we always use Harrington's from London." "At 3 times the cost," Mr. Brighton pointed out. "William's proposal would allow us to significantly increase our donation to the Children's Hospital while supporting Liverpool businesses. Quite innovative thinking, wouldn't you say?" The conversation that followed was a masterclass in subtle social dynamics. Mr. Brighton's obvious respect for William and Sarah forced Mrs. Harrison to acknowledge them differently, while Oliver watched his familiar world shift beneath his feet. As the Harrisons departed with their carefully wrapped pastries, Emily squeezed William's hand under the cart's counter. Her father was examining the daily specials board with interest, asking Sarah detailed questions about her business model and expansion plans. The morning's events had revealed more than just Mrs. Harrison's secret patronage of Sarah's cart. They had exposed the complex web of prejudices and pretenses that governed their social world, and shown how quickly those barriers could crumble when confronted with simple human dignity and excellence. Looking at his mother's proud smile as she discussed business strategies with Mr. Brighton, William felt a new sense of possibility. Perhaps the upcoming charity ball would be more than just a school event. It could be a chance to bridge worlds that had seemed impossibly far apart just months ago. November brought early darkness to Liverpool streets, but Sarah's cart glowed like a beacon near Albert Dock, fairy lights twinkling against the grey sky. The charity ball preparations had increased her workload considerably. She was now providing sample pastries for the committee to taste, while maintaining her regular business and evening cleaning work. "You're pushing yourself too hard, Mum," William said one morning, watching her massage her tired hands. The previous night's baking session had run until dawn, and dark circles shadowed her eyes. "Nonsense," Sarah replied with a determined smile. "This is our chance to show what we can do. Besides, your father always said opportunities don't announce themselves with fanfare. They slip in through the service entrance." The mention of Robert brought a familiar ache to both their hearts, but also strength. William remembered how his father would work late into the night grading papers, always making time to help students who needed extra guidance. That same spirit of dedication had carried Sarah through their hardest times. At school, the dynamics continued to shift. Oliver Harrison had become oddly subdued since the revelation about his mother's secret patronage of Sarah's cart. During committee meetings, he focused intently on his notes, avoiding direct interaction with William, but no longer making snide comments either. Emily noticed the change too. "He's not as confident now that everyone knows his mother loves your mum's pastries," she observed during their lunch break. "James seems lost without Oliver's usual leadership." Indeed, James Worthington had begun showing a different side of himself. One afternoon, he approached William after advanced mathematics. "Listen, Thompson," he said awkwardly. "I heard you're tutoring some of the younger students in maths. I have a cousin in Year 9 who's struggling. Would you consider taking on another student?" The request surprised William, but he agreed. It turned out James's cousin, Peter, shared many of his interests and none of his cousin's prejudices. Their tutoring sessions became enjoyable exchanges about science and literature, slowly building a bridge between their different worlds. Meanwhile, Sarah's involvement with the ball preparations had caught the attention of local media. The Liverpool Echo ran a small feature about her business, highlighting how a local vendor was helping to maximize the charitable impact of the prestigious school event. The article included a photo of Sarah at her cart, her warm smile capturing the essence of her resilient spirit. The publicity brought unexpected consequences. One morning, a sleek black car pulled up near the cart, and a distinguished-looking woman emerged. She introduced herself as Lady Victoria Pembroke, a prominent member of Liverpool's social circle and a regular at high society charity events. "Mrs. Thompson," she said warmly, "I've been hearing remarkable things about your catering proposals for the Michaelmas ball. Would you consider providing pastries for my annual Christmas garden party? It's quite an important event for the local charity scene." Sarah maintained her composure, though William could see her hands trembling slightly as she wrote down the details. This could be the breakthrough they'd been waiting for, a chance to expand beyond the cart and perhaps even open the small cafe she'd always dreamed about. However, success brought its own challenges. That evening, as they closed up the cart, Sarah received a call from Mrs. O'Leary at the pub. With all the extra baking work, Sarah had been struggling to maintain her evening cleaning schedule. Mrs. O'Leary, though sympathetic, needed reliability. "I understand," Sarah said quietly after ending the call. "We'll manage, love. We always do." But William could see the worry in her eyes. The cleaning work had provided a steady income they relied on, especially with the upcoming expenses for the ball. The next day at school, William was preoccupied with their financial concerns when Emily found him in the library. She had news that would add another layer of complexity to their situation. "The Board of Governors is considering implementing a mentor program," she explained excitedly. "Dad says your academic performance and tutoring success inspired them. They want to pair scholarship students with alumni mentors who came from similar backgrounds." William's heart leaped at the possibility. Such a program could help future students avoid some of the challenges he'd faced, but Emily wasn't finished. "There's more," she continued, lowering her voice. "Dad mentioned that Oliver's father has been particularly interested in your mother's business model. Apparently, he's been looking to invest in local enterprises as part of some community development initiative." The information stirred mixed feelings in William. The Harrisons' interest could mean incredible opportunities for his mother's business, but he couldn't help wondering about their true motivations. Had their recent social embarrassment prompted a genuine change of heart, or was this another form of control? That evening, as William helped his mother prepare for the next day's baking, he shared Emily's news. Sarah listened thoughtfully while kneading dough for her signature cinnamon rolls. "Life has a funny way of coming full circle," she mused. "Your father used to say that pride and prejudice are like badly risen bread. They might look impressive on the outside, but they're hollow within." As they worked side by side in their small kitchen, the familiar rhythm of baking providing comfort, William realized that their world was expanding in ways they never could have imagined just a few months ago. But with each new opportunity came decisions that could change their lives forever. The question wasn't just about business opportunities or social advancement anymore. It was about staying true to themselves while navigating a world that was finally beginning to see their worth. As the scent of baking bread filled their modest flat, William wondered what his father would advise in this situation, and how they could honor his memory while building a new future for themselves. The first week of December brought frost to Liverpool's streets, and unexpected warmth to its social circles. Sarah's cart had become a morning gathering spot for an increasingly diverse crowd. Ladies in designer coats queued alongside dock workers, all waiting for her freshly baked goods while William helped serve before heading to school. Lady Pembroke had become a regular customer, often arriving with friends who quickly became devoted to Sarah's pastries. The sight of luxury cars parked near the cart no longer drew surprised stares from passers-by. "You've created quite a revolution in Liverpool's breakfast habits," Emily commented one morning, helping William arrange displays before school. She had taken to arriving early, claiming Sarah's hot chocolate was essential for facing winter mornings. "Mum always said good food brings people together," William replied, watching as a prominent banker chatted amicably with a street cleaner while enjoying their morning pastries. At school, the charity ball preparations had entered their final phase. The committee meeting room buzzed with activity as students finalized details for the upcoming event. William's local catering proposal had evolved into a showcase of Liverpool's finest independent food artisans, with Sarah's creations as the centerpiece. However, the morning's calm was disrupted when James Worthington burst into the room, his usually composed facade cracking. "Oliver's in trouble," he announced, his voice tight with worry. "His father's investment firm. There's been some sort of financial scandal. It's all over the morning news." The room fell silent. Oliver, who had arrived moments before James, sat rigid in his chair, his face pale. The past weeks had seen a subtle thaw in his attitude toward William, but now uncertainty clouded his eyes. During break, Emily shared more details she'd overheard from her father's phone conversations. The Harrison family's reputation was under scrutiny, and their position in Liverpool's social hierarchy was suddenly precarious. "The charity ball committee membership is usually reserved for students from prominent families," James explained later, when he caught up with William in the library. "With this scandal, Oliver might be asked to step down." William thought about his own journey at Liverpool College, how initial prejudices had slowly given way to grudging acceptance and, in some cases, genuine respect. Making a decision, he headed to the headmaster's office. "Oliver's work on the committee has been valuable," William argued, standing firm before the school administrators. "Removing him now would only add to the community's gossip. Besides, isn't the ball about charity and second chances?" His words carried weight, backed by his academic excellence and the success of his initiatives. The headmaster, after some consideration, agreed to maintain Oliver's position on the committee. When Oliver learned of William's intervention, he found him after classes. "Why?" he asked simply, his usual arrogance replaced by genuine confusion. "Because everyone deserves a chance to be judged on their own merits," William replied, remembering all the times he'd wished for the same consideration. That evening, sharing the day's events with his mother, William watched Sarah's face light up with pride. "Your father would have done the same thing," she said, wiping flour from her hands. "He always said true character shows not in how we treat our equals, but in how we treat those who've lost their advantage." The weekend brought another surprise. Mrs. Harrison appeared at the cart, not to buy pastries, but to talk. Sarah sent William to make deliveries, giving them privacy, but later shared the essence of their conversation. "She's afraid," Sarah explained, her voice gentle, "not just of the social fallout, but for Oliver. She's worried this scandal will define his future, just as she once feared our circumstances would define yours." The parallels weren't lost on either of them. That night, as they prepared for the next day's baking, Sarah made a decision. "I'm going to offer Oliver a job at the cart," she announced, "part-time during holidays. He needs to learn what it's like to work for something, to build rather than simply inherit." William considered this unexpected development. "Do you think he'll accept?" "Pride can be a hungry thing," Sarah mused, "but hunger for redemption can be even stronger." The next few days brought more changes, brought more. The newspaper article about the Harrison scandal was accompanied by a smaller piece about the upcoming charity ball, highlighting how students from different backgrounds were working together to support local businesses and maximize charitable donations. Emily's father, seeing an opportunity to reshape narratives, suggested featuring Oliver alongside William in the ball's press coverage. "Show how Liverpool College students support each other through difficulties," he proposed during a committee meeting. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The former bully and his target now portrayed as examples of school unity. But as William watched Oliver quietly thank Mr. Brighton for the suggestion, he recognized that sometimes the most significant changes come not from grand gestures, but from small moments of human connection. As they finalized the ball preparations, William noticed how the event had evolved from a simple school function into something more meaningful. It had become a symbol of how communities could change, how prejudices could dissolve, and how unexpected circumstances could create unlikely allies. Sarah's cart continued to serve as a gathering point for Liverpool's diverse morning crowd, a daily reminder that good food and genuine warmth could bridge any social divide. The upcoming ball would be more than just a charity event. It would be a celebration of how far they'd all come and a promise of changes still to come. The week before, the charity ball transformed Liverpool College into a hive of activity. Fairy lights twinkled in the Victorian corridors, and the Great Hall was gradually taking shape for the upcoming event. William found himself at the center of it all, coordinating with local vendors and managing last-minute changes to the catering arrangements. Sarah's cart had become a command center of sorts, with suppliers dropping off samples and committee members huddling around it in the early mornings, reviewing plans over hot chocolate and freshly baked scones. The winter air was crisp, but the atmosphere was warm with purpose and anticipation. "Your mother's organizational skills are remarkable," Helena Blackwood commented one morning, watching Sarah coordinate deliveries while simultaneously serving customers. She should consider event planning as a business expansion. The suggestion wasn't entirely new. Lady Pembroke had already commissioned Sarah for 3 more events in the coming months, and word was spreading through Liverpool's social circles. The simple pastry cart was evolving into something bigger, though Sarah insisted on maintaining her spot near Albert Dock. "It's where our story began," she'd say with a smile. Oliver Harrison had surprised everyone by taking to his part-time work at the cart with unexpected enthusiasm. His initial awkwardness had given way to genuine interest, particularly in the business aspects of running the operation. Sarah had caught him studying her accounting books one quiet afternoon, his brow furrowed in concentration. "It's different when you see the actual numbers," he'd admitted to William later. "How every decision affects the bottom line, how much work goes into earning each pound. My father, he always dealt with much larger sums, but somehow this feels more real." The mention of Mr. Harrison brought a familiar shadow to Oliver's face. The financial scandal had deeply affected his family, forcing them to downsize and withdraw from many social circles. Yet somehow, the experience had humanized Oliver in the eyes of his peers. His newfound humility and work ethic had earned him respect that his former arrogance never could. Emily had become a constant presence in both William's school and personal life. She spent hours helping at the cart, learning Sarah's recipes and sharing stories about her own family. One evening, as they were closing up, she broached a subject that had been on her mind. "Dad's been talking to some investors," she said carefully. "People who are interested in supporting small local businesses. He thinks your mum's enterprise would be perfect for their portfolio." William felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. "What kind of support?" "Proper backing for a cafe," Emily explained. "A real establishment with tables and a kitchen. Dad says the location near the Albert Dock would be perfect. Tourists and locals alike love that area." The possibility was tantalizing, but William remembered his mother's independence, how hard she'd worked to build everything on her own terms. "I'll mention it to Mum," he promised, though he suspected Sarah would have her own thoughts on the matter. That evening, as they prepared for the next day's baking, Sarah surprised him by bringing up the subject herself. "Mr. Brighton came by the cart today," she said, measuring flour with practiced precision. "He had some interesting proposals about business expansion." William watched his mother's face carefully. "What do you think?" Sarah was quiet for a moment, her hands working the dough with familiar rhythm. "Your father always said that opportunity doesn't mean surrendering independence. It's about finding the right partners who respect your vision." She smiled softly. "Mr. Brighton seems to understand that." The conversation was interrupted by an unexpected visitor. James Worthington stood at their door, looking uncomfortable but determined. "Sorry to disturb you," he said, "but I needed to talk to William about Oliver." Over tea and day-old scones, James shared his concerns. Oliver's family situation was worse than they'd thought. The Harrisons were considering leaving Liverpool altogether, which would mean Oliver missing his final year at Liverpool College. "The ball is in 2 days," James explained. After that, I don't know. His mother's trying to keep it quiet, but they're selling their house. William thought about Oliver's transformation over the past months, how he'd gone from antagonist to something approaching a friend. The idea of him leaving now, just when he was beginning to find his own path, seemed wrong somehow. That night, William couldn't sleep. He thought about his father's books lining their small flat's walls, particularly one well-worn volume of Charles Dickens that had been Robert's favorite. Inside, he'd written a quote that now seemed particularly relevant. "No one is useless in this world who lightens the burden of another." The next morning, William arrived early at school, seeking out Mr. Brighton before classes began. The conversation they had would set in motion events that would change not only Oliver's future, but the entire dynamic of their intertwined lives. As the day progressed, final preparations for the ball consumed everyone's attention. Sarah's kitchen had become a production line of delicate pastries and elegant canapes. Emily and Helena had joined forces to help, their expensive manicures forgotten as they worked alongside Sarah, learning her techniques and sharing laughs. The atmosphere was charged with anticipation, not just for the ball itself, but for all the changes it represented. In less than 2 days, Liverpool College's Great Hall would host an event that had evolved from a simple charity ball into a symbol of community transformation. Looking at his mother directing her impromptu crew of helpers, William felt a surge of pride. They had come so far from those first difficult days at Liverpool College, yet somehow remained true to who they were. As the winter sun set over the Mersey, casting golden light through their small kitchen window, William sensed that even bigger changes were yet to come. The day before the charity ball brought controlled chaos to both Liverpool College and Sarah's cart. The normally quiet school corridors buzzed with activity as students and staff made final preparations for the event. William moved between his various responsibilities with practiced ease, his father's old cufflinks already laid out at home alongside the borrowed tuxedo. Sarah's cart had become a hub of excitement, with Lady Pembroke and several other society ladies stopping by to check on the preparations for the ball's refreshments. The sight of these elegant women clustered around the humble cart, earnestly discussing pastry arrangements with Sarah, would have seemed impossible just months ago. "Everything must be perfect," Sarah murmured, checking her lists for the 100th time. The ball would be her biggest catering event yet, and its success could determine the future of her business. Emily arrived mid-morning, bringing news that set the day on an unexpected course. "Dad's called an emergency meeting of the Board of Governors," she announced, her eyes bright with excitement. "William, they want you to attend." The meeting was scheduled for that afternoon in the school's oak-paneled boardroom. William arrived to find not only the governors, but also several prominent local business leaders, including Lady Pembroke and, surprisingly, Mrs. Harrison. Mr. Brighton stood at the head of the table, his presence commanding attention. "We've been discussing the future of Liverpool College," he began, "and more specifically, our relationship with the local community. Recent events have shown us the value of diverse perspectives and experiences." He went on to outline a proposal that left William stunned. The board wanted to establish a permanent scholarship fund, significantly expanding the number of students from diverse backgrounds who could attend the school. Additionally, they proposed creating a student-run enterprise program, using Sarah's business model as a template. "We'd like you to help develop this program, William," Mr. Brighton continued. "Your experience bridging different worlds would be invaluable." But there was more. Lady Pembroke stepped forward to present another initiative, a community business mentorship scheme. "We've secured funding to support local entrepreneurs," she explained. "Mrs. Thompson's enterprise would be our pilot project, helping us understand how to best support other small businesses in Liverpool." William's mind raced to his mother's dream of opening a proper cafe. This could be the opportunity they'd been waiting for, but he knew Sarah would want to maintain her independence. Mrs. Harrison spoke next, her voice carrying a new humility. "My family's recent challenges have taught us valuable lessons about privilege and responsibility. We'd like to be part of this initiative, investing in the community that has shown us such unexpected kindness." The meeting continued with discussions of logistics and implementation, but William's thoughts were already with his mother. How would she react to these proposals? Would she see them as an opportunity or an attempt to change who she was? Racing back to the cart after the meeting, William found Sarah in deep conversation with Oliver. who had proven surprisingly adept at handling the business side of operations. "The numbers for the cart are solid," Oliver was saying, gesturing to Sarah's account books. "With proper investment and scale, a cafe could work brilliantly in this location." Sarah looked up as William approached, her eyes twinkling. "I hear you've been in quite an important meeting, love." Before William could explain, Mr. Brighton appeared at the cart, accompanied by Emily and her mother. Mrs. Brighton, elegant in her casual wear, smiled warmly at Sarah. "I hope you'll forgive our timing," she said, "but we wanted to discuss something before tomorrow's ball. You see, we've had our eye on a vacant shop space near the dock." As the adults talked, William and Emily stepped aside, watching the animated discussion unfold. Oliver joined them, his expression thoughtful. "Dad called this morning," he said quietly. "The situation with his firm, it's not as bad as we feared. We're staying in Liverpool." He paused, then added, "Thanks to your mum, actually. Her recommendation to Lady Pembroke helped secure him a position with a local investment group." The three teenagers stood in comfortable silence, watching as their parents mapped out a future that none of them could have imagined months ago. The winter sun was setting over the Mersey, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. "You know," Emily mused, "tomorrow's ball was supposed to be about charity, but it's become something much bigger, hasn't it?" William nodded, thinking of his father's books and his mother's determination. "It's about community," he said. "About seeing people for who they really are, not what they have or where they come from." As evening approached, final preparations were made for both the ball and the next chapter in their lives. Sarah's kitchen hummed with activity as she and her impromptu team prepared the last batches of pastries. The borrowed tuxedo hung ready, Robert's cufflinks gleaming in the lamplight. Tomorrow would bring the ball, but tonight was for reflection and anticipation. As William helped his mother with the final tasks, he realized that their little family had grown in ways they never expected. The simple pastry cart had become a catalyst for change, not just in their lives, but in the fabric of their community. The morning of the Michaelmas charity ball dawned clear and cold, with frost sparkling on Liverpool College's ancient window panes. Sarah's cart was already in full swing before sunrise, coordinating deliveries and making final preparations for the evening's event. "Everything's ready in the school kitchen," Emily reported, arriving early to help. She was still in her casual clothes, her ball gown waiting at home. "The staff says they've never seen such an organized setup." William worked alongside his mother, his mind occasionally drifting to the borrowed tuxedo and his father's cufflinks. The morning passed in a blur of activity, with Sarah orchestrating everything like a conductor leading an orchestra. By early afternoon, Sarah sent William home to prepare for the evening. "Go on, love," she insisted. "I've got plenty of help here." Indeed, Oliver and James had arrived to assist, both already showing signs of nervous excitement about the evening ahead. At home, William carefully dressed in the borrowed tuxedo. It fit perfectly, thanks to Mrs. Jenkins's skillful alterations. As he attached his father's cufflinks, he caught his reflection in the mirror. For a moment, he looked so much like Robert that it took his breath away. Sarah arrived home later, just in time to prepare herself for the evening. She emerged from her room in a simple but elegant navy blue dress that Lady Pembroke had insisted on giving her. "It's just gathering dust in my closet," Lady Pembroke had said, though William suspected the dress was new. "You look beautiful, Mum," William said softly, seeing tears gather in her eyes. "Your father would be so proud," she replied, straightening his bow tie. "Not just of tonight, but of everything you've become." They arrived at Liverpool College as the sun was setting. The historic building was transformed, with fairy lights twinkling in every window and red carpets leading to the entrance. The Great Hall had been decorated with winter flowers and crystal chandeliers, creating an atmosphere of timeless elegance. Sarah immediately went to check on the catering arrangements, while William joined the other committee members in welcoming guests. Emily appeared in a forest green gown that made her eyes sparkle, and even Oliver and James looked distinguished in their formal wear. "The governor's table is completely full," Helena reported excitedly. "Even the Lord Mayor has come. This is the biggest turnout the ball has ever had." As guests arrived, William noticed how the usual social barriers seemed to dissolve. Parents who might never have spoken to each other were chatting animatedly about Sarah's catering and the local business initiative. The Harrison scandal, which had dominated conversations weeks ago, seemed forgotten in the spirit of community that filled the hall. Mr. Brighton took to the stage to officially open the evening. "Tonight," he began, "we celebrate more than charity. We celebrate the power of community, the importance of seeing beyond our preconceptions, and the value of every individual's contribution to our society." His speech was met with enthusiastic applause, particularly when he announced the new scholarship program and community business initiative. Sarah, standing near the back of the hall, wiped tears from her eyes as Mr. Brighton described how her small cart had inspired a movement of local business support. The evening progressed like a dream. The food was universally praised, with guests returning repeatedly to sample Sarah's creations. Lady Pembroke was overheard telling anyone who would listen about the cafe that would soon open near Albert Dock, speaking as if it were already Liverpool's most fashionable destination. During a quiet moment, William found Oliver standing alone, watching the crowds. "Thank you," Oliver said suddenly, "for everything. I was horrible to you, but you and your mother showed me what real class means." William thought of his father's words about dignity and worth. "Sometimes we all need a chance to see things differently," he replied. The dancing began and Emily appeared at William's side. "May I have this dance?" she asked with a playful curtsy. As they moved across the floor, William caught sight of his mother dancing with Mr. Brighton, her face alight with joy. James and Oliver had taken charge of monitoring the refreshments, directing servers with surprising efficiency. Mrs. Harrison, watching her son work, seemed to stand taller, as if seeing him in a new light. Later in the evening, the headmaster announced the total amount raised for the Children's Hospital. It was 3 times their original goal. The success was attributed to the money saved through local catering and the generous donations inspired by the community spirit of the event. As the night went on, William noticed something remarkable. The Great Hall of Liverpool College, once a symbol of social division, had become a place where dock workers' children danced alongside bankers' daughters, where small business owners chatted with investment bankers, and where everyone was equal in their celebration of community. Sarah found him during a quiet moment. "Your father used to say that true wealth isn't in our bank accounts," she said, squeezing his hand. "It's in the lives we touch and the changes we inspire." Looking around the transformed hall, at the unlikely friendships that had formed and the barriers that had crumbled, William understood exactly what his father had meant. The evening wasn't just a charity ball. It was a testament to the power of seeing beyond surface appearances to the true worth within. The day after the charity ball, Liverpool awoke to headlines celebrating the event's unprecedented success. The Liverpool Echo featured a photo of Sarah and William on its local news page, praising the innovative approach to catering and community involvement that had made the ball such a triumph. Sarah's cart was busier than ever, with new customers eager to taste the pastries that had impressed Liverpool's elite. But change was in the air. Workmen were already beginning renovations on the shop space near Albert Dock that would become her cafe. "We'll keep the cart too," Sarah had decided. "It's where everything began, and it reminds us of who we are." At school, William noticed a subtle but significant shift in the atmosphere. The usual social groupings had begun to blur, with students from different backgrounds mixing more freely. The success of the ball had created a new sense of pride that transcended old prejudices. Emily found him in the library during lunch break, her eyes bright with excitement. "Dad says the Community Business Initiative has already received dozens of applications. Your mum's story has inspired so many people to pursue their dreams." The initiative, formally launched at the ball, would provide support and mentoring to small business owners throughout Liverpool. Sarah had been asked to serve on the advisory board, bringing her practical experience and understanding of the challenges faced by local entrepreneurs. Oliver and James had become regular fixtures at the cart, learning the business from the ground up. Oliver particularly showed a keen interest in the financial aspects, his father's business acumen finding a more grounded expression through Sarah's practical guidance. "It's not just about profit margins," Sarah explained one morning, showing him how she adjusted her prices to ensure her regular customers could still afford their daily treats. "It's about building relationships and understanding your community's needs." The Harrison family's situation had stabilized, thanks partly to the connections made through their involvement with the community initiative. Mr. Harrison had found a new purpose working with local businesses, his experience now tempered by humility and a better understanding of real-world commerce. As William helped his mother close the cart that evening, Mr. Brighton stopped by with architectural plans for the cafe. The space would be transformed while still maintaining its historic character, with large windows overlooking the dock and a cozy interior that would welcome everyone from dock workers to business executives. "We want to create something special," Mr. Brighton explained. "A place that embodies the spirit of community we saw at the ball." Sarah studied the plans with careful attention to detail. "We'll need to make sure there's plenty of counter space for displays," she mused, "and perhaps a small reading corner with books people can enjoy while they have their tea." William smiled, recognizing his father's influence in her thinking. Robert had always believed that food and literature could bring people together, creating spaces for connection and understanding. Later that evening, as they walked home along the riverfront, Sarah shared news that made William's heart swell with pride. "The school board has asked me to help develop a curriculum for their new business studies program," she said. "They want students to learn about entrepreneurship from people with real experience." The program would be part of Liverpool College's broader initiative to connect with the local community, inspired by the unexpected success of their collaboration with Sarah's business. Emily joined them for dinner, bringing a surprise. She had found an old photograph of Robert giving a lecture at the university, his face animated as he shared his passion for literature with his students. The picture now had a place of honor in their small flat, alongside the plans for the cafe. "Your father would love what's happening," Sarah said softly, looking at the photograph. "He always said education wasn't just about books and lectures. It was about learning to see the world through others' eyes." As they sat together in their cozy living room, sharing stories and dreams for the future, William reflected on how much had changed since his first day at Liverpool College. What had begun as a challenge to fit into a different world had become something far more meaningful, a transformation that had touched not just their lives, but their entire community. The cafe would open in the spring, its windows catching the first warm sunlight of the season. But more than just a business, it would stand as a symbol of how barriers could be broken, prejudices overcome, and communities strengthened through understanding and respect. Sarah's pastries had done more than feed people. They had helped bridge social divides and create connections that would last far beyond the taste of her famous cinnamon rolls. As William watched his mother and Emily poring over catalogue samples for the cafe's furniture, he knew that this was just the beginning of their story. The evening ended with Emily teaching Sarah how to use social media to promote the upcoming cafe opening, while William sorted through his father's books, selecting ones that would find a new home in the cafe's reading corner. Their small flat hummed with the energy of new beginnings and the warmth of shared dreams. The transformation of the old shop near Albert Dock into Sarah's cafe progressed steadily as winter gave way to spring. The March winds brought with them the scent of fresh paint and new beginnings as workers installed the large windows that would soon showcase Sarah's creations to passers-by. William spent his afternoons after school helping with the preparations, often joined by Emily, Oliver, and James. The four of them had become an inseparable team, each bringing their own strengths to the project. Emily had an eye for design, Oliver understood the business aspects, and James had revealed an unexpected talent for organization. "It's really happening," Sarah said one evening, standing in the middle of what would soon be her cafe. The space was beginning to take shape, with warm wooden floors and comfortable seating areas. The reading corner, lined with Robert's carefully selected books, felt like a piece of home transplanted into this new setting. The cart still operated every morning, now with a loyal following that included both old customers and new faces drawn by the publicity from the charity ball. Lady Pembroke had become a regular visitor, often bringing potential investors for the community business initiative to sample Sarah's baking and hear her story. At Liverpool College, William's role had evolved beyond that of a simple student. The success of the charity ball and the subsequent community programs had made him something of a bridge between different worlds. Younger scholarship students sought his advice, while his peers increasingly looked to him for leadership. "You've changed this place," Emily told him one afternoon as they studied in the library. "Not just the school, but the way people think about each other." The changes were indeed visible. The rigid social groupings that had once defined the school had softened, replaced by friendships based on shared interests and mutual respect. Even the teachers had noticed the difference, commenting on the improved atmosphere in classes and social events. Oliver, who had once been the face of privilege and prejudice, had become one of the strongest advocates for the school's new initiatives. His experience working at Sarah's cart had given him insights that he now shared with other students from wealthy families, helping them understand perspectives they'd never considered before. "My father says the community business initiative has been more successful than anyone expected," he told William during one of their morning shifts at the cart. "They're talking about expanding it to other cities." The initiative had already helped several small businesses in Liverpool, creating a network of support that strengthened the entire community. Sarah's story had become a symbol of what was possible when talent and determination met with opportunity and understanding. As the cafe's opening day approached, Sarah received an unexpected visit from Mrs. Harrison. The two women had developed an unlikely friendship, bonding over their shared experiences as mothers, trying to guide their sons through challenging times. "I never properly thanked you," Mrs. Harrison said, watching Sarah arrange a display of fresh pastries. "Not just for helping Oliver, but for showing me a different way of seeing the world." The conversation turned to plans for the cafe's opening celebration. It would be a community event, bringing together people from all walks of Liverpool life. The Lord Mayor had already confirmed his attendance, and local media were showing interest in covering the story. William found his mother later that evening, sorting through old photographs for a display wall in the cafe. She had chosen images that told their family's story. Robert in his university robes, Sarah at her cart in the early days, William at his first day of school. "Look what I found," she said softly, holding up a faded photograph of Robert standing proudly beside his first university office door. He always said that education was about more than just learning facts. It was about growing as a person, about understanding others. The photograph would have a special place in the cafe, alongside newer images that showed how far they'd come. Pictures from the charity ball, snapshots of daily life at the cart, and candid moments of the unlikely friendships that had formed over the past months. As they worked together, William noticed how his mother had changed too. The worried lines around her eyes had softened, replaced by smile lines that spoke of joy and contentment. Her dreams were no longer just dreams, they were becoming reality. That night, as they walked home along the riverfront, the lights of Liverpool twinkling on the water, Sarah shared her vision for the future. "The cafe won't just be a business," she said. "It will be a place where everyone feels welcome, where stories are shared and where new friendships can begin." The spring breeze carried the promise of change and growth, much like the seeds they'd planted months ago, had grown into something beautiful and unexpected. Tomorrow would bring more work on the cafe, more preparations for the future, but tonight they savored the moment, knowing that they were part of something larger than themselves, a transformation that had touched not just their lives, but their entire community. The morning of the cafe's opening dawned bright and clear, as if Liverpool itself was celebrating the occasion. Sarah's cart stood in its usual place near Albert Dock, but today it was adorned with flowers and ribbons, a tribute to where their journey had begun. William arrived early to help with final preparations, finding his mother already at work in the new cafe kitchen. The space gleamed with possibility: warm wooden tables, comfortable chairs, and shelves lined with both books and freshly baked goods. Large windows let in the spring sunshine, offering views of the historic waterfront. "Perfect timing," Sarah said, handing him a fresh scone. "Emily's already here helping set up the display cases." Indeed, Emily had arrived even earlier, bringing with her an unexpected gift, a hand-painted sign that would hang above the cafe's entrance. "Thompson's Literary Cafe," it read, with an image of an open book alongside a steaming cup of tea. "The name was Dad's idea," Emily explained. "He said it captured both your heritage and your future." As the morning progressed, their extended family began to arrive. Oliver and James appeared in matching aprons, ready to help serve at what would be their first official day as proper employees. Mr. Brighton arrived with a group of local business leaders, while Lady Pembroke brought a contingent of social circle friends who had become devoted supporters of Sarah's enterprise. The Liverpool Echo sent a photographer to capture the moment when the Lord Mayor officially cut the ribbon, declaring Thompson's Literary Cafe open for business. Sarah stood proudly beside William, her eyes bright with happy tears, as she thanked everyone who had helped make her dream a reality. The cafe filled quickly with a diverse crowd: dock workers and bank executives, students and teachers, old customers and new faces. The reading corner proved particularly popular, with people already settling into the comfortable chairs with books and pastries. "Your father would love this," Mrs. O'Leary said, gesturing to a young student reading one of Robert's old poetry books while enjoying a cinnamon roll. He always said literature and good food were the great equalizers. As William moved through the crowd, he overheard snippets of conversation that made him smile. Oliver was explaining the business model to a group of interested investors, while James efficiently managed the flow of customers and service. Emily flitted between tables, making everyone feel welcome and sharing stories about the cafe's journey from concept to reality. Mr. Harrison, who had become an active supporter of the community business initiative, was deep in conversation with a group of small business owners. "Sarah's success shows what's possible when we invest in local talent," he was saying. "It's about creating opportunities and building bridges." The afternoon brought a surprise visitor, William's old head teacher from Toxteth Community School. "We've been following your story," she said warmly. "You've inspired so many of our students to dream bigger." As the day went on, the cafe took on the atmosphere Sarah had always envisioned, a place where conversations flowed freely across social boundaries, where stories were shared, and where everyone felt at home. The reading corner buzzed with discussion groups, while the tables hosted everything from business meetings to friendly chats. Near closing time, William found his mother standing by the window, watching the sunset paint the Albert Dock in shades of gold. "Dad would be so proud," he said softly, standing beside her. Sarah smiled, touching the simple gold band she still wore. "He is proud, love, I can feel it." She gestured to the busy cafe. This is everything he believed in: education, community, bringing people together. The evening ended with an impromptu gathering of their closest friends. Emily, Oliver, and James helped clean up, while sharing stories and plans for the future. Mr. Brighton raised a toast to success, while Lady Pembroke announced that the Community Business Initiative had already approved funding for 3 more local enterprises. As the last customers left, Sarah gathered her staff, no longer just employees but family, for a final moment together. "This isn't just a cafe," she said, her voice full of emotion. "It's a testament to what we can achieve when we look beyond surface appearances and believe in each other." William looked around the room at the unlikely family they had built. Emily with her kindness and creativity, Oliver and James with their transformed perspectives, and his mother, standing tall and proud in her own space at last. The cafe represented more than just a business success. It was a symbol of how people could grow and change, how communities could come together, and how dreams could become reality. The next morning, Sarah's cart still stood in its familiar spot near Albert Dock, a reminder of their humble beginnings. But now it was just the start of their daily routine, the first chapter in a continuing story of transformation and growth. As William helped his mother prepare for another day of serving both cart customers and cafe patrons, he knew that their journey had come full circle. And yet, in many ways, it was just beginning.